What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at Data Dash, and today is October 31st of 2020. Well, folks, I hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you are. And in today's video, I want to spend some time before we dive into our news and topics to talk about today, because today is a really special time, and it really is a fitting time as well. Back about 12 years ago from this date, on October 31st of 2008, the initial release and version of the Bitcoin white paper was revealed to the world. And though at the time that revolution seemed very small, it has come a long way in the last 12 years, not only coming from a concept, but to an actual protocol in early 2009, growing its own markets in 2011 as its own currency or asset, and now coming to the point now where it has become a well-renowned and understood asset that is starting to gain recognition across the globe. It's no longer seen as digital speculative money used on the dark web for criminal activities. It's now being seen as a world-class asset, something to put in your portfolio to diversify against your other assets such as bonds and stocks or real estate. And the really great thing about this is that 12 years ago from today, we were living in a very similar world. In 2008, traditional banks and central banks, whether they be commercial or central banks, were struggling with managing the economy. People had lost trust in the institutions that were supposed to keep the system going. And now, 12 years later, Bitcoin has found a home. It has found an environment with the same type of volatility, with the same type of fear for the future. And now we have a time where during mass printing, near negative interest rates, Bitcoin has a chance to thrive. It has developed markets. It has developed a user base. It has now developed a sense of eagerness to spot out a new asset that can save people in this time of chaos. And I think that's what Bitcoin was built for back in 2008. And 12 years later, I think we're going to start to see the kind of realization of what Satoshi and many others wanted to see. You know, as they continue to improve the protocol, adding factors of limiting supply, and continuing to improve the protocol for scalability in order to hopefully build a world reserve store of value. I think that this is what really excites me about Bitcoin. And now I would say that Satoshi, whoever they may be or whatever collective they may be, they're probably looking down or continuing to admire what's going down in the cryptocurrency space with the developments of DeFi on the Ethereum network and the constant push for broadening financial access for people across the globe. It's a really extraordinary time. And above all, I'm blessed to be here with you all to experience it. And we've got a lot of other things to talk about today. Bitcoin going towards $14,000. A lot of other topics in the news here. A lot of mainstream coverage of Bitcoin. And outside of that as well, we've got a sponsored interview with Sky, who is the co-founder of Ethereum. So stay tuned for all of that. You won't want to miss it, guys. Let's go ahead and take a look here at the market. Now, we've obviously known for the last month and a half, a little over the last month and a half, we've been having a really positive swing up in the markets. Just taking a look here at our drawings here, we've been following the higher lows here in regards to price, and we can see from the bottom here in September that we've been able to make a total move of around 41.57%. The absolute peak here setting a little bit above 14,000 at 44% up for the last month and a half. Really solid rally, one of the best here that we've seen in 2020 outside of the 2020 recovery back in March. Now, again, I don't really want to talk too much about, whether I think Bitcoin's going to close today above 14K or, what's going to happen here over the next day or two. I'm actually in the camp that there's a good chance that there's a correction over the next few days. I mean, after these kind of rallies, you tend to have a bit of a pullback. But above all, guys, I'm not really here to talk about that. I want to talk about the bigger picture here, as I tend to want to on the channel, right? We're obviously setting it at the highest weekly close here. Whether we close to the top or the bottom of this candle, it's the highest weekly close that we're going to have since back here in January 2018. We're continuing the trend of what we set last week. And I want to go ahead and focus in on what's causing this optimism in markets. There's a lot of elements here that are coming into the equation that are sparking this craze. But one of the key things that's really come into play here that I wanted to discuss today that many of you are probably aware of is the stack up of Bitcoin. I always talk about inflows and outflows in markets. And one of the big things that's been changing as we've already had over the last year, a lot of supply side dynamics that have helped Bitcoin's price. We now have the demand side that's starting to actually materialize that change in price, because with a limited amount of supply in this case, or a growing number of limited supply, and the cryptocurrency space, you're going to have the demand factor that really basically expands that divergence and leads price to move higher. Well, this is really interesting here. The Wall Street Journal, the market section of the Wall Street Journal, one of the major publications here in the US, coming out, and one of the major posts here at the top is cash is trash, so let's bet $425 million in Bitcoin. And as many of you can probably already guess, this is covering the story of MicroStrategy's bet on Bitcoin. Now, I'm not saying in this case that this is going to make a dozen different companies across the globe, maybe Fortune 500 companies, dive all into Bitcoin. I don't think that that would even be probably smart for most major Fortune 500 companies. And I'm saying that as a fan of Bitcoin, who broadly speaking has more allocation to cryptocurrencies than any other asset class. But I digress. The thing I do think this tells us is that people are starting to wake up to the stories that many of us have known for the last couple of weeks, couple of months, maybe even the broader narrative that we've known for years. That this is no longer going to just be a speculative tool. The 2017 rally is no longer going to be seen as a bubble. What we're experiencing right now is enough of the demand and the supply shock in Bitcoin to drive us back to those all-time highs of 20K. And we'll get there sooner than people think. I think some people have expectations that are too soon, such as maybe next month. I don't think that that's going to happen. But I also know that there are people who think this is going to take towards late 2021 or 2022. Folks, our theory in this case that we've been sticking to for the last few months, we've been writing about in the Dash report, we've been talking about here on the channel, somewhere around Q1 of 2021. And there's a lot of reason to believe this rational level can happen because the demand is starting to come in. When you start to have major companies like, Grayscale, for example, who's created their Bitcoin exchange traded note GBTC that's physically backed by Bitcoin. And again, as they continue to issue more shares, in that case, they're going to need more Bitcoin, so they keep accumulating it, sometimes millions of dollars on a given day and billions in a given month or quarter. When you start to get these kind of inflows coming in, purchasing up Bitcoin, and you start to see companies as well using Bitcoin as a corporate treasurer asset to balance out their balance sheet and to actually hedge against hyperinflation or devaluation of their currency on their balance sheet. This is a continuous narrative that's going to build up. And the more and more Bitcoin's price gets close to 20K, the more and more companies we see doing this. What seems like a crazy idea, and I think, again, yes, $425 million or the full balance sheet of a company going to Bitcoin will still be seen as crazy. The idea of 1 to 2% of your balance sheet going towards alternative assets like Bitcoin is not going to be crazy. And we further talk about this going into the Dash report. If you guys are looking for a way to support the channel, I really appreciate it. We not only cover cryptocurrency markets, we talk about stocks, we talk about commodities, we talk about Forex markets, cover the whole shebang for a relatively reasonable price. But above all, we dive into this topic about how the kind of current environment is really shaping Bitcoin to be this perfect corporate treasure asset. As the Fed, the ECB, the Bank of Japan, the People's Bank of China, and dozens of other central banks across the world all have a chart that looks like this, where asset balance sheets are going vertical, interest rates are going like this, going down into zero, if not negative territory, or historic lows for that matter. We are building the perfect environment for people to look for alternative assets. They're forced to look for these assets. They've been doing that since back in March of 2020. The dynamics for markets have completely changed. And what this is doing now is, again, it's shaping up the environment where Bitcoin's price can initially move up higher. But when we get above that 20K mark, you're going to see more and more visual cues that no longer is Bitcoin being ignored. As I've emphasized before on the channel, for me and many other investors out there, and we can see it through the momentum of price and the headlines, when Bitcoin breaks above its all-time highs, it's signaling something. It's not just saying in this case that, oh, we're going towards higher prices. No, it's saying to every single doubter beforehand that Bitcoin was a bubble back in 2013 when it got above $1,100. When it got back to those all-time highs, it was saying to every doubter that that wasn't just merely a bubble. It was just a relative high in the overall cycle for the overall asset. And this is the same in traditional markets. When the NASDAQ passed the dot-com bubble highs back from the 1990s, and now is charting towards even higher levels here in 2020. It was a proving point back in 2015 and 2016 when we passed it that this was a mere step in the overall process for this sector. And the same goes here for Bitcoin. Now, again, I love tweets like this. Courage had put out a good tweet here. Back in 2017, Goldman Sachs putting a headline out, cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, are not an asset class. We saw continued sentiment, building up here over the last few years in regards to Goldman Sachs. But interestingly enough, major banks now in 2020, now Goldman Sachs has appointed a new global head of digital assets and following in JP Morgan's footsteps is reportedly exploring the possibility of creating its own blockchain-based answer to Bitcoin. Interesting. Now, of course, this might be more corporate washing talk of, oh, blockchain-based solutions for banking, whatever. I mean, that's not really what we're going to see here, guys. What we know is coming here is that all these banks, if they want to remain relevant, they're going to offer investment and retirement services for Bitcoin. It is no longer going to be just the startups of the world and the companies out there that are building the IRA solutions, that are building the investment solutions, the exchange solutions, whatever it may be, right? I don't think they're going to let their lunch get entirely eaten. And when these banks start to offer these services, whether they're good or bad, it is going to set demand for Bitcoin as an asset. So if you're focusing solely on the investment thesis, this is probably good news. But at the same time, I don't think they're going to win out in the long term. I think that people are going to go towards the much more decentralized options. I think that people are going to start to realize in this case that a new wave of kind of fintech applications and providers out there, they're going to carry that wave forward. But everyone's going to play a part in it for sure. And it's a really, really exciting time just to be here, guys, to see Bitcoin finally starting to get realized as an asset and starting to shape the overall environment for other assets like Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies. With Ethereum's developments in DeFi, I'm really excited to see where crypto is going to go and how much of, crypto as an overall sector can start to swallow the traditional financial world. I think we're just getting started, whereas other asset classes are back to their all-time highs. Bitcoin is barely charting towards those levels. We still got a ways to go. Above all, I wanted to do one last thing here to close off the video before we go into our sponsored interview with Sky from Ethereum. I wanted to let you all know we're doing the close today on the $100 ETH giveaway. I wanted to give some ETH out to those of you who are looking to get into DeFi and check out the digifox.finance app. And the winner of the competition is Danny1199. I really appreciate all of you who participated in the competition. We've got a lot of people who have obviously participated, and I know for certain guys that this is not going to be the last. So we've got some other ones coming soon, so stay tuned for it. You'll definitely want to be a part of it. So let's go ahead and dive into this really exciting interview with Sky from Ethereum. Alrighty, everyone. So in today's sponsored interview, I'm sitting down with Sky, who is one of the founders over at Ethereum, which is not only aiming to build a blockchain platform to service the need of central bank digital currencies or CBDCs, but along that as well, build a coexisting ecosystem for CBDCs alongside other needs within the blockchain space, such as the emergence of DeFi and other decentralized applications. I'm really fortunate to have him here today. We're going to be talking about all things Ethereum and what's going on with the project as it's planning to launch to mainnet tomorrow. So Sky, I'm happy to have you here, man. I mean, this is an exciting time for you guys. Over the last 3 years, you've been working on this up until this point.
Yeah, finally, we're coming to our mainnet launch date, and I am very happy to share this news with you,
Yeah, absolutely, Sky. So
audiences.
yeah, it's a blessing to have you here, man, because I know as a founder myself, I know that difficulty of waiting a long time to get something out. So I'm curious, for those who may have maybe not seen the review or the recent news mention we had on the channel, what is Ethereum all about, and how are you guys positioning yourselves to service for this market of central bank digital currencies?
Yeah, so Ethereum is a new enterprise level. It's a new enterprise grade blockchain platform. It's a public blockchain protocol, which is fully permissionless because we implemented a hybrid proof of work and a hard stuff, which is a Byzantine fault tolerant consensus algorithm. Our hybrid algorithm both retains Satoshi Nakamoto's fully decentralization and also the powers of the full speed and the transaction finality of Byzantine fault tolerance. Hot stuff is also used by Libra. It's one of the world's most advanced BFE algorithm. However, Libra is centralized, while we make hot stuff fully decentralized that everyone with a computer could join our consensus group or leave at any time as long as he's connected to the internet. And we have a Java virtual machine and Java programming language for our smart contract. We also support Solidity, but because Java is the most widely used programming language in the world, so all the Android applications and most of the major financial applications and web applications are built on Java. Also, Java has world's biggest and most active programmer communities. That's why we chose it for our smart contract. Our aim is to build a smart contract platform for enterprise blockchain applications and also for enabling the interoperability between the current financial institutions and the upcoming CBDC, which is central bank digital currency revolution. Our blockchain supports like instant transaction finality. We can process several thousands of transactions per second and support like billions of user accounts. We can simply understand as a decentralized version of Libra because we are based on the same consensus algorithm. And we serve as the interoperability layer among different CBDCs because banks, those central banks, they have their own CBDC plans, and there's no standard way of like communicating between CBDCs exist yet. So the public blockchain is the best way to serve such purpose. And with a public blockchain, the data is fully transparent and also immutable. That like establishes the trust between the two parties. So these are our current works.
Scott, I think you hit on a lot of points there that I'm personally a big fan of in the sense of your guys' approach. So comparing Libra in that case, one of the things that I think stands out is not only that you guys have a decentralized approach. A lot of people may not know, but Libra has ditched its plans to go towards a permissionless blockchain where we can all play a role in the consensus mechanism. But along with that as well, one of the great things is that you get scalable throughput utilizing hot stuff alongside proof of work. And what's nice about this is that your guys' philosophy, from what I can understand, is that you're making it very clear that, look, this is going to have to happen on a public blockchain. And it's for two reasons. One, we need the interoperability of these central bank digital currencies. They cannot happen in siloed systems. And along with that as well, central banks alongside commercial banks have different interests and alignments on what they either want to achieve with the central bank digital currency or what they have in the degree of like trust or relations with other central banks. So they want to have something where they don't have to trust the system. It just works. And it gives them the platform that has all of the resources to actually make this happen. But taking a step back, Sky, I kind of want to build on this topic here of CBDCs because it is kind of your bread and butter of what you guys are focusing on. What's the value proposition of CBDCs? We understand that cryptocurrencies right now are about a $400 billion market in general. How big could central bank digital currencies be when we're talking about global currencies in a digital format?
The current global currency, according to the most recent estimation, is like $200 trillion worth. So that is like multi-trillion dollar market, while the combined cryptocurrency market is only like several $100 billion. So it's at least like a several hundred or even like thousand difference in order of magnitude. And you can see how huge is the potential of the CBDCs. And also, as the DeFi movement, although DeFi is like getting cold, but it greatly boosted the demand and the use cases of stable coins. And CBDCs are going to be the world's biggest stable coins. You could see that potential. So the value proposition of CBDC includes like the elimination of paper cash, because the paper cash, they are easy to fake and they're difficult to process and carry. And also the CBDC enable instant transaction settlement. Our current banking system usually takes several days or even longer to process the transaction. For example, if you swipe a credit card on a terminal, the merchant is not going to receive the payment like immediately, but it could take like several days and also a huge transaction fee. That's why like in the United States, most of the merchants, they require the credit card payments above a minimum. And also for international payment, this can take even longer. And given that the paper cash has so many limitations and drawbacks, that's why central banks are currently working on digitizing their fiat currencies. Another reason that central banks are accelerating the digital currency adoption is because they are facing the threat from the coins like Libra, because like Libra has the potential of becoming a global central bank with like 2 billion of users, and no central banks could like ignore what is potentially happening next. So that's why central banks, they are currently catching up and According to a recent survey, over 80% of global central banks have their own plan of launching the CBDC in the next few years.
Wow, Sky. I think what Libra was, it was a catalyst moment. Taking a step back. I remember back in 2015, or, kind of looking back in 2015, the BIS was talking about the concept of central bank digital currencies as if it was just a research paper and kind of a long out dream. But now we're actually seeing it in action, and a lot of central banks are preparing. And I think, again, it was that catalyst moment with Libra. And also, you mentioned as well, there are a ton of benefits here. Again, I know a lot of people have a negative stigma sometimes when they hear about central bank digital currencies as if it's competition to Bitcoin. I really don't see it as that. I think of Bitcoin as kind of an autonomous asset outside of the world of traditional currencies. This is just a new format of accounting and transfer and storage of traditional currencies, as you mentioned, as we go towards digitization from physical cash. And I think one of the really interesting things you brought up is the cost with merchant fees. I always emphasize to people that Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover, the four major card giants, just them alone charge around an estimated $600 billion in fees every year, every time you're swiping and sending money from point A to point B. So it's a major cost for the economy. And this is a great way where central banks can hopefully mediate or kind of get rid of some of the demand for some of those payment rails where it can be much more cost effective. And I wanted to ask you another thing, Sky. As you talked about stable coins playing a very big role here in DeFi, I know this very well. I built a wallet that actually taps into a lot of the pools where you can earn interest in DeFi. And I understand how much of a value proposition there is for stable coins, in this case, for earning yields. So I'm curious, how are you guys positioning yourselves in DeFi? Because I think there's a great value opportunity where currencies can natively play a role here. And your entire network is focused around bringing fiat currencies to the mainstream in the blockchain world.
Yeah, we believe DeFi is more than just a buzzword. It does have real use cases and potential because DeFi is like everyone could act as a market maker or like a lender or borrower. It eliminates the barrier of entering the financial market for like regular people like us. So I don't have to be like a financial professional and you don't have to have like a license. However, DeFi is still quite new and it also faces severe problems. One of the biggest problem is that all the DeFi coins on Ether they cost a huge amount of gas. Like when the Uniswap airdropped its coins, the Ethereum transaction fee rose to like $50 per transaction, I remember. Yeah, so that totally eliminated the participation of like small investors and users who could not afford it. The blockchain is supposed to make transaction cheaper and faster, but when you have to pay like those huge outrageous transaction fees, what are you gonna do? Yeah. And the other problem of DeFi is that it lacks regulation. As you can see, YAM this year is quite hot. However, this $600 million project only lived less than like 36 hours because one of the code went wrong. Yeah, just on one line of the code went wrong and this project totally collapsed. So the DeFi is facing like a security threats because most of the DeFi smart contracts are not audited and there's like no standard to protect the investors. And also DeFi is anonymous. That's like some hackers are utilizing like Uniswap to launder their illegal gains. So all these challenges are like preventing DeFi from reaching bigger and mainstream adoption. And in our blockchain, our aim is to combine DeFi and the central bank digital currencies because the central bank digital currencies, they have like stronger regulation and control and also protection for the regular investors. That's why we feel like combining DeFi and the CBDC could truly unlock the benefits of DeFi, such as it's like always running, so it never ends, stops, and also it could like hugely eliminate the fees of the middle layer. So like you don't have to rely on like a broker or a third party and pay them like a huge amount of fees. So this is what we are currently researching. And also We plan to launch our first DeFi app after our mainnet launch, which is called Cypher Swap. It is like similar to uh, like a DX, a decentralized exchange, but it supports more functionalities.
Yeah, in this case, I think it's a reiteration, I guess, in Uniswap in this case. And the great thing, as you mentioned, Sky, is that you'll be able to support the swaps of multiple different types of assets, providing true interoperability here. And that taps into a whole new wave of liquidity. And again, as you mentioned with central bank digital currencies, just further amplifies the potential of DeFi actually finding a grounding in the long term outside of being this bubble where for maybe you or I, it makes sense to pay $20 for a trade. But for a lot of investors who are doing $100 trades, $200 trades, it just doesn't make sense for them to actually go out and make that trade. So I think along that as well, one thing that I like about you guys is that with Cypherum's vision, you guys are kind of a full suite solution for central bank digital currencies. And that means that you do provide the opportunity for people to provide identification, to do all these certain things that you would do in a traditional kind of CBDC network. And what's great is that you can actually kind of have this bridge where in DeFi, you can have things that are more decentralized, some things that are more centralized. So I think, again, it's going to have that kind of that spectrum where you can have a project that's extremely regulated and some as well that can take more of a decentralized approach. So I'm very interested just to see how things continue to foster over the long term. And as you guys are working on CypherSwap, I love how you guys are doing the community airdrop as well. But the last thing I wanted to talk about is a bit about the team's background here, because I know Sky, you've obviously worked as a Nasdaq analyst, kind of advisor in this case for blockchain, as well as for working with the MFIF in this case, the organization that you guys work with. So I'm curious to hear a little bit about, what's the team's background like? I know we won't get to meet everyone here today in the video, but a little bit about yourself and some of the other team members.
Sure. So I have been working on blockchain for a couple of years, and like you said, I previously had interviewed at Nasdaq and the United Nations. I spoke at the first UN Blockchain Summit, and recently I just had another spoke at the UN 75 Dialogue Program, talking about the potential and the emerging tech of CBDCs. And plus, I am also a columnist for some financial media, including like Caixin, which is China's top financial media, and like Nasdaq. And I also had so I have participated the first ever hackathon that's sponsored by the US government and won third place back in 2017. So I have both like the technical background and also the business background of the blockchains. And our co-founder, Solomon, he is a PhD at UMass Amherst, and he has like multiple years of distributed systems and the cryptography and also like the economics of the blockchains. Also, we have a very strong engineering team consisted of like former engineers from Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Huawei. They have because like they have very strong backend and the server experiences, which are all like the basic and the most fundamental elements of blockchains. And we have a world-class advisor team. So our current blockchain advisor is Brian Ford, Professor Ford. He is very well-known professor in the blockchain. Have you heard about Omni Ledger, which is world's first sharding architecture for blockchain? So Brian, he is the inventor of Omni Ledger, and Omni Ledger has been adopted by many projects like Zilliqa and Near Protocol. We also plan to enable sharding like as our next step. Plus, we also have like Jeremy Gardner and Evan Goodsire. So these are very famous blockchain people. Like they are our former advisors, but like they had like very valuable contributions to our project. And yeah, that's it. That's pretty much a wrap up of our team.
Yes, I mean, I think you guys have a really stacked team. I know, I've followed him for some time, And along with that, as I was looking through the team, you see a lot of expertise. A lot of people have gone through a lot of great colleges. You mentioned Solomon went to UMass Amherst. I had a few friends who went there as well. It's a good school. And I think overall, just what I think what's so great about you, what you guys have done is that it's going to rely, especially on what you're trying to build, on getting a lot of major central authorities to try out these systems. And if you guys can even land a couple central banks in this case, at least testing out these systems or exploring them, I think it's going to be a really awesome opportunity to not only learn, but also push forward the space of bringing out about a much larger scale of liquidity than just what we've seen with USDC and DAI and USD Tether, something that actually is issued by central banks, because that's the ultimate form of a stable coin in that case, real dollars from a central bank. You don't have to trust in this case that there's custody or one-to-one backing. And I think you guys have a very valuable opportunity. So in that case, I wanted to say in this case, guys, it's been awesome getting to chat with you. And for those of you out there who are listening in right now, I'm going to be leaving some links down below in the description where you can go ahead and check out what's going on at Cypherium. It's a really exciting project. I've had the fortunate privilege of getting to know a little bit about Sky as we've chatted over the last few weeks. And outside of that as well, I think there's just so much going on with the project. Sky, is there anything that, like, as the mainnet is coming up here, is there anything you'd recommend people get to check out in this case? Maybe learn more about Cypher Swap, etc.
Yeah, so first, please go to our website, which is ethereum.io, and you could find our most recent information and also our white paper and other like our partnership news and our engagement with central banks there. And we have a very active global community. So you could join our community by following us on Twitter, which is at Ethereum Chain, or join our Telegram group, which is Ethereum_super group. So these are the best way to get in touch with our team and also other community members.
Awesome, Sky. Well, man, like I said, it's a pleasure to have you here, especially on such a close time frame to the mainnet launch. I want to say, above all, no matter how it goes, congratulations for all your hard work on that. I know that that's probably been a long time coming, and congrats as well to those on the team as well alongside you who made it possible.
Yeah,
So,
this is like a most exciting moment of our project. And
absolutely.
but like more exciting things are happening. Like we are currently already working with some interoperability works involving central banks, and we will like announce those news in the future.
Awesome, Sky. Well, that's great to hear, man. Congrats on all the progress you guys have made. And along with that as well, again, guys, make sure to check out the links if you guys are interested in the project. Read more into Cypherium. Definitely check out, as I always advise, continue to read the white paper, go through. I think you guys made a wonderful white paper. It's easy to digest, and it covers a lot of the differences about how you guys stand out, and not only your philosophy as a project, but also in the technology. So thank you so much, Sky, for making the time. It was a pleasure as always, and we'll have to chat again soon.
Same, yeah, yeah. Bye bye.